Chords and Coffee number 41. Take you a quick swig of whatever it is you're drinking. I had decaf coffee the other night with an incredible piece of pie over at Ozark Mill. If you're ever in the Springfield, Missouri area and you want to do something nice, you want to go eat you something that's really good, different, and kind of rustic, Ozark Mill, free commercial. I received no benefit from telling you this information other than the fact that I had a really good time and meal was great. Had it was the risotto, fried risotto fritter. And then I had a braised pork shank. And then I had some of this caramel apple tart with some seasonal pumpkin pie. I know you're getting hungry right now. It was really good. I had a cup of decaf coffee. I don't normally drink decaf coffee, but there's something wholesome, right, and pure with the universe when you're enjoying a good piece of pie with a cup of decaffeinated coffee because, I got to work in the morning. So I went ahead and just had the decaf. This is the real thing. Thank you so much for all your encouragement on the previous videos. I had my wife on. I had Dylan on. And, we had a little piece of the Alec Davis show that we did. And everybody had such wonderful things to say. So thank you for that. It means a lot to me. There was some questions or actually more like suggestions about, hey, y'all talk about the CAGED system. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I was thinking about the CAGED system, and I want to show you how I think about it, okay? And here's my illustrated sermon. See this cable? Actually, there's two of them. I got two of these cables, okay? A wise person once told me that everything comes down to cabling, and you can think of cabling in this metaphor as connectivity. If you've been watching these Chords and Coffees for a while, there was an episode. In fact, I think it was the episode where I was talking about my pedal board, and I said, I think I've got a short in my guitar, this guitar right here. And come to find out, I had two cables that went bad on me at the same time. I have no idea. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty, respectful to all my cabling and my equipment, but these both went bad. I was using them in my effects loop and somehow or another, and I was trying to trace this thing down and came down to cable, and I thought it was my guitar. Took my guitar in a couple different times, and it wasn't doing it, and it was humming a little bit, and our guitar tech, Danny Rogers, who's fantastic, it starts humming and goes, yep, sounds like a P90 to me, right? So 60 cycle hum. If you don't know what I'm talking about, comment below, and I'll explain that to you, but anyway, yeah, just single coils being single coils. Come to find out, it was my cables that were bad. It was what I was using to connect. And so I want to use that as framework to talk about the CAGED system. The CAGED system, C-A-G-E-D. It's very clever. I don't know who came up with this, but whoever did, super clever person. The way it essentially works is, instead of thinking of a C chord as a C chord, think of a C chord as a shape, in as much as we're going to think of an A as a shape, a G as a shape, an E as a shape, and a D as a shape. And these shapes all sort of interlock. And what makes this system beneficial is that once you get the connectivity or the relationship, that's what Chords and Coffee is all about, friends, the relationship of the way these things all connect together, then what happens is, in the words of Rocky's trainer, Mick, you become a very dangerous person, right? What happens is you're able to connect an idea up and down the fretboard. And so, as a little for instance, I'm going to circle back to CAGED real quick, but that little vicious circle, Mac Davis wrote that for Elvis. In the ghetto, that song I was playing at the very top. I don't know if you recognize that or not, but there's this little maneuver here, this little... right? And that little thing, I mean, that's like the Rolling Stones, you know, in a nutshell, right? Or I was out earlier today, and Elton John, Tiny Dancer came on, and that whole first verse is that. Also, Paul McCartney, I've got a feeling, right? That one chord to the 4 chord over the 1, that little sus thing, that's one of the beautiful things that the CAGED system gives you, among a bunch of other ways to connect ideas together. So 1, 2, 3, here we go. Get your guitar, get tuned up. Let's expose the CAGED system. That was my thumbnail shot just then. All right, anyway. All right, comment below if you know what I'm talking about. Any folks out there making YouTube channels. If not, just stay with me. All right, so the first shape, this C shape. Good old cowboy C. You know it, you love it. So this shape, one of the things going on here that we want to pay attention to is what's happening right here, okay? So think about if there was more guitar back this way, okay? And in fact, if you were to rearrange your fingers like this so that I've got my middle finger happening here on the 1st fret of the B string, open G, and then ring finger is on the 2nd fret of the D, and then pinky is on the 3rd fret of the A, right? So index finger is just free, but it's a good old-fashioned C chord. If I were to slide this whole sheboing up a whole step, right? You with me? So I'm gonna give it to you. Pinky, 5th fret of the A. We're not doing anything with the low E. A string, 5th fret, pinky. Ring finger, 4th fret, D string. Forget about the G for 1 second. Middle finger, 3rd fret, B. Now, take this index finger that's been itching to get involved in the situation here. We're going to lay that joker right across the 2nd fret. You can go all the way across if you want, or you can just start on the A. I'm going to go all the way across from E to E. You've got the start to Red Hot Chili Peppers Under the Bridge there. That's the way John Frusciante voices that D chord at the top of that tune, right? Well, why am I showing you this? Well, because this kind of thinking is the CAGED system in a nutshell. This kind of thinking is, let's use these shapes and move them around, right? And so, this C, well, if I'm spelling it out, C-A-G-E-D, connects next to this A shape chord. Now this is good old-fashioned C bar chord, probably the first bar chord you learn. If you learned Green Day songs, and Green Day's a great band, they've got some cool stuff. I never got bit by the punk rock bug. Sorry. If you did, more power to you. I didn't. Anyway, but this little shape right here, think of this like an A chord, right? But I'm just sliding it up here, right? So what happens is that this C shape wants to go right into this A shape, okay? So right now, if you're looking at this, you're going, brother, I love you, but I don't see how these are connected. Well, stay with me, okay? So from this A shape right here, where I've got this little bar here, just like we were doing a 1-finger A on the 2nd fret, but we're up here on the 5th fret, right? And holding down the bass note here on the 3rd fret, like a good old-fashioned bar chord. Now, you're going to start to see it a little bit, because the next shape is a G chord shape. Now, arguably not the easiest bar chord in your toolbox of bar chords, but it's really helpful in seeing how all this comes together. So let's make a G like this, good old cowboy G. So middle finger is on the, well, I'll tell you what, ring finger, let's start with the ring finger. Ring finger is on the low E 3rd fret, right? Just like that. Middle finger's on the 2nd fret of the A. Everything else open, right? So G, or D, G, and B all open. And then pinky on the high E 3rd fret. Now, you know G chord. Well, we're going to slide this whole deal up to where your ring finger is now on the 8th fret, okay? Index finger is going to go on the, I said 8th fret, but I was on the 6th fret. 8th fret. Index finger is now going to go on the 5th fret. And so basically you're making a bar chord from the D, G, and B, and then you have a G chord happening here underneath. Now, if this is your first time doing this, you're going, Nate, that is exceedingly stretchy. I cannot do it. Well, give yourself a moment, sneak into it. Well, Nate, my fingers are too short. Listen, Django Reinhardt, you ever heard of him? The guy was walking around like this, right? You can do it. You just might have to give yourself a minute, okay? You can't change a tire perfectly the first time you have to change a tire, but life will give you opportunities to change a tire. Just change this tire. Right? There it is. Now, back to this cage idea. We were here, and then that connected by sliding this up to here. There's that A chord. Now this A chord, look at this. Boom! Is now being still facilitated by my index finger now as I form a G underneath it. Right? From this G, if I make this good old-fashioned, my first bar chord, right? Index finger across the 8th fret, straight across, and then build an E, C, A, G, E underneath this bar, right? Now that connects to this. Another way to think about it, and if you were paying attention to episode 40, where Dylan was talking about using an F-shaped bar chord, right? This E-shaped bar chord is really, if you kind of boil this down here, this F shape has this the top of the E shape there. And if that's confusing to me or to you, comment below and I can unpack that a little bit more. But all these shapes, what gets confusing is when we think of the shape as the chord itself as opposed to just a shape. And that's what I'm trying to show you, is that if we think about it just in shapes, and in fact, this is why so many of our heroes as guitar players never learned to really read music or a chord chart. I'm not advocating that, but I am saying there is the reality of, once you get these shapes sort of in your mind as a roadmap, it's the same thing as like not being able to read a map, but kind of knowing where you're going just because you're so familiar with the lay of the land. So with that being said, we're down here on this E shape, right? So one more time, recap. This C shape, this bar chord shape that has this A shape in it, this G chord shape, where that A is still sitting up there. Now we go to this E shape, right? And then last but not least, we're going to play this D chord shape up here. And this is on the 12th fret, so index finger on the 12th fret of the G. And actually, here's what we're going to do. We're going to add another C into it, so we're going to do it like this. So index finger on the 10th fret of the D, and then middle finger on the 12th fret of the G. And then pinky on the 13th fret of the B, and then the ring finger is on the 12th fret of the high E. So, well, what in the world is that going to do for me, Nate? Nate, I sat here and it's 13 minutes in and I haven't learned nothing. Well, I'm going to tell you. A lot of times, when you are looking for ideas like lead-wise, right? Playing little scales and stuff. When I'm playing a solo, especially if I'm improvising it, or even if I am looking for a melody, and stay with me on this, what will set you apart as a guitar player, what will set you apart as someone who is performing, or where your style or where your voice is that you're hunting for. I hope you're hunting for it, right? You're not just trying to be a carbon copy of John Mayer or Stevie Ray Vaughan or whoever, right? I hope you're trying to find yourself, right? If you can't connect to yourself, it's real hard to connect to anybody else. So as you're hunting for your voice, that is hidden in the way that you choose to connect these ideas together. That is that's your expression, right? What appeals to your ear, what feels good underneath your fingers when you're playing, is sort of like, that's the breadcrumb trail that leads you to sounding like you. There's a great Miles Davis quote where he says, it takes a long time to learn how to sound like yourself. It does. It does. And guess what? It's worth it. Doesn't matter when you get started either. I don't care if you're 5, 15, 55, or 85, okay? It's worth it. Because that's honestly the most fulfillment comes from playing where it's like you are sounding like you, right? And of course, you're going to sound a little bit like the folks that you listen to because they have influenced your playing. But the sort of the end result of that amalgamation of influences, that concoction that's mixed together and stirred about that gets poured out, that's what you sound like. And so as I'm connecting these ideas, right, let me just do this little guy right here. So going back to this G shape at the top of the tune, or at the top of this video, I was playing that, right? All that is think of it, this is an A chord, right? One finger, I'm building this G shape underneath it, right? And I want to hammer on to what is essentially like a C shape that we just did for, remember, Under the Bridge just a few seconds ago or minutes ago, where it's like a C that slid up and then I put a bar on it, right? Well, what's happening here with my middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B, right? And then my ring finger on the 4th fret of the D, while my index finger is laying across the D, G, B, and then also high E strings. Pinky is going to come down here on the 5th fret. So if I take this whole thing off, now I've just got this bar here and pinky. So bar on the D, G, and B, and then I'm going to hammer on with this. And again, that's the Keith Richards secret sauce, right? Now, he tuned his guitar to an open G tuning. And in fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but he tuned his from A was a G, and then he had D, G, B, and then he tuned his top string to a D, I believe. Comment below if I'm wrong on that, or if I'm right, just to help me feel better about talking off the cuff here. And then he would take off the low E string. So he only had a 5-string guitar, right? But this whole maneuver here, right? If that doesn't remind you of, you know, the Rolling Stones, Black Crowes, Blackberry Smoke, that kind of stuff, then you had to listen to that stuff. But that's what I was doing at the top of the tune, right? And I love to connect that idea here. Here's another way I love to connect these ideas. So from this G chord, I might go down here and just do this little walking, descending line from like a G to a G major 7 down to that open, F sharp right there. And in fact, I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving. This is all these ideas connected. Let me say it this way. If you've got an idea that you do in C, right? We did a Chords and Coffee lesson there. Well, then how would I do that here if I'm playing this? And I'm putting myself on the spot because I haven't thought of this. So I'm hammering on from C to D. How would I do it up here? Right. So what I'm trying to demonstrate for you is taking a simple idea and moving it up and down the fretboard, but also starting to see the fretboard in all of its connectivity through these chord shapes, right? That's how you do it. Do you want me to go further? Do you want me to go further with this? And if so, specifically what? So comment below. I love this kind of stuff, but really what I want to do is I want to inspire you to find your own voice, your own expression, your own licks, and your own vocabulary through this system, the way that it all connects together. And to me, that's the best part. The other thing that comes up that's really great is that if you're playing with another player and you trying to separate, one high, one low kind of thing, like we talked about in the last video, the power and girth and the shimmer and shine kind of principles, then this is really handy too, because it gives you an ability to kind of transpose really quickly. So the other thing I wanted to mention is Richard Holland had said, hey, talk about that hybrid of working man's blues. No problem. All we're doing is we're taking that Albert Cummings. If you haven't listened to that, it's on Spotify. But he does this this little lick at the top. So instead of doing like the Merle Haggard, where it's like, where it's a little faster and it's a little more, hey, kind of Jerry Reedish, whatever. We're kind of swinging a little bit, which is also a Jerry Reed kind of thing. And all that's happening there is I've got my index finger covering the D string, the G, and the B of the 5th fret. And then I'm hammering on with the major third. So hammering on with the major third on the 6th fret of the G. And then my pinky is playing the 7th fret from the D, the G, and the B. It's like a D chord, so. And really, I'm really only focusing on that G string. Well, that's some big. And then once the vocal starts, I kind of lay out, and my big, I'm getting by. I've been working down there. And I'm playing like some little, we've talked about some of these chords in the past, like this little A13 grip up here where you got your index finger on the 10th fret of the A. You've got your ring finger on the 11th fret of the D, pinky is on the 11th fret of the G, and then middle finger is on the 10th fret of the B. It's a big job getting by when I get one. Maybe like a little slide in there. I've been working dang near all my life. And that is a C sharp minor 7, which functions as A7. We've talked about that before, but here it comes. Index finger on the 4th fret of the C sharp. Ring finger on the 5th fret of the D. 4th fret of the A string is C sharp. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Ring finger on the 5th fret of the D. Middle finger on the 4th fret of the G. And then pinky on the 5th fret of the B. And then I might go to the D9 right there, but a lot of times I also like to do this. I love the rub of those two notes. It's a little John Schofield-y. And what that is so this is like a D7 sus4, or you could argue a D11 kind of thing too. But anyway, middle finger on the 10th fret of the low E, okay? Skipping the A. Ring finger on the 10th fret of the D, okay, pinky on the 11th fret of the G, and then index finger on the 8th fret of the B. Monday morning, be right back. Bring back to that little thing there. Yeah, I do a little drinking in the evening, and we do that for the next verse, and then that third verse where it goes, hey, hey, the working man like me, I've never been on. That's a Merle Haggard thing he does, where he comes in on that and like jumps that little beat there and hits that G, which is the flat 7 of A, and then back to the A, and then maybe a dum bum bum bum, or a bum 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 bum. So ever do that little walk up there where you go like A to B minor 7 to C diminished 7 to A over C sharp? There's a Travis Tritt song called "Put Some Drive in Your Country," where he does that before he goes to the 4 chord. All that is index finger across the 2nd fret of the from the D to the G to the B, good old-fashioned one finger A, B minor 7, so index finger from the A string to the high E 2nd fret, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B, and then ring finger on the 4th fret of the D, open G. Look at that. Looks very similar to what we were just doing a second ago, right? It's all connected, right? And then here comes the whammer jammer here. This little guy right here, very gospel-y, right? So this 3rd chord, I would think of this as, if I was trying to explain it in like 2 seconds, it's a B7 over C, right? I don't know if that's 2 seconds for a lot, but it's more complicated theory-wise than that, but shape-wise, that's all that's really happening. So you've got your middle finger on the C, 3rd fret of the A, you've got your ring finger on the 4th fret of the D, and then you've got your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G, and then your pinky is on the 4th fret of the B. And then I like to, because of the voice leading of it, I like to play this next A over C sharp like this. So you've got your A, your index finger across the D, G, and B again, 1 finger A, pinky on the B string of the 5th fret, and then ring finger on the 4th fret of the A. So the whole thing. Now what's that look like? We were just talking about it. It looks like a G chord, right? With the bar on it. Do you see that? I'm just not playing the G right here, or the A right here. But if I was, that makes that G chord, right? It's all connected. And then back into the tune. So was that helpful? I hope so. So that's a little bit of exposing the CAGED system, that these shapes are all connected. It's all about connectivity, and connectivity is all about relationships. And that's what we're doing right here. Hey, if you would, find somebody to encourage that's a guitar player. Find somebody that you can speak into their life and say, hey, keep doing that. Keep doing what you're doing. And how about this? You sound great. And mean it, right? If they need a lot of work and they're struggling, then just encourage them to keep going. All right? So every time you guys comment below, that's what you're doing for me. You're encouraging me to keep going. I appreciate you. I appreciate you jumping in and being a part of this community, and hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon.